Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. LSU and Army will do battle tomorrow at 6:37 p.m. And as I was looking at this game on the schedule and thinking to myself, like, is there anything that Army could do that would give LSU some problems? You think about this Army team and this program, they've really resurrected it. I laid it out yesterday for you that Jeff Monken has just done a phenomenal job at Auburn. In the 3 years before he got there and his first 2 years, they were a total of 14-46. Since then, his third year and on, 60-35. He's just done a great job with this Army program. And you think about the option offense and the problems that it can present, and you've seen some upsets through the years with teams running that option offense, but this team can't really do it. And further than that, this is a nightmare matchup for Army. It's just a nightmare. And it is a dream matchup for LSU. Because the strength of this Army team is the defense. They lost to ULM, but it was a 17-13 game. They shut out Delaware State, whatever. They played a tight game at Syracuse. They held them to 29 points. They held Troy to 19. They held Boston College to 27. Like, they've been pretty solid defensively. And they have no chance to stop LSU. None. No chance. I mentioned the size of their defensive front. They're very small. They're not overly athletic. Garrett Nussmeier ran a good bit on him. He was the quarterback of Mississippi State 15 years ago, and now he's a starter at Syracuse. Jaden Daniels and this offense are just going to cruise over the strength of this Army team. And their weakness is the offense, so they're not going to be able to counter with against LSU's strength, LSU's weakness, which is the defense. Like, Army just can't punch back. And so I think this is a great situation for LSU, who's built this year very much offensively, you know that, to go out and just get a huge early lead, which allows the coaching staff the ability to play young players, get some guys some rest, that kind of thing. I mentioned this back on Wednesday when we started talking about this game. How many times did Les Miles run, toss dive, run the clock, and you look up and it's 38-7, and you just get on down the road. Like, that's what a lot of those non-conference games look like. This LSU team is built the exact opposite. I mean, what indication do you have tomorrow that LSU is not going to come out and score touchdowns on 4 of their first 5 drives? They do it against Ole Miss. They do it against Missouri. They do it against Mississippi State. Why wouldn't they do it against Army? They are. This team is just built in a way, and they're playing at a level that's going to allow the perfect scenario in this game. I'm an idiot, and I overanalyze things because it's technically my job to sit here and analyze the sports. But I'm petrified of, like, targeting stuff in the second half and getting guys hurt in a meaningless game. And I don't know how the staff's going to handle it tomorrow, but I believe they will have every opportunity to get Garrett Nussmeier in the third quarter and let him play, to get Caleb Jackson 15, 20 carries. They'll have the opportunity to play Lance Hurd as much or as little as they want. They can get Harold Perkins and Mason Smith out of the game in the second half if they want to, because Army is just built to play good defense and run the ball. And what they're doing in trying to run the ball, which they do more than almost anybody in the country, is do it behind an offensive line that is 315 pounds at left tackle, 295 pounds at guard, 309 pounds at center, 305 at right guard, and 315 at right tackle. They're just grossly undersized. You look at Mason Smith, eat those guys alive. He's just bigger and stronger. There aren't a lot of 330-pound guys in the Army. Just not what we're looking for in the armed forces. And now you've taken away their advantage or their ability to compete with the cut blocks and just diving at people's legs. They've got to now stand up, engage, get pad level, and try to drive guys off the ball. They're not going to be able to do that. They couldn't do it to Troy last week. And they're not built to try to throw against LSU's secondary that struggled to cover. They're built to run it into Mason Smith and run it into Harold Perkins and run it into Greg Penn and run it into Omar Spates. And Auburn couldn't do that last week. What gives you the indication that Army's going to be able to do it? And they're supposed to be built to play defense, and they can play some defense against Syracuse. This ain't Syracuse. This is potentially the best offense in college football. I'm sure I'd get some dissents from Seattle, maybe Eugene. But this thing is humming, and it's just set up to be hot knife through butter at this point, which is what I think we're going to get tomorrow. If I'm looking for LSU, I want to see guys catch the ball. The drops have been something that has stalled some drives. You had an early drive that was stalled against Arkansas from a drop. We know there were some drops against Florida State that were really key. I want to see LSU catch the football. I'd like to see Caleb Jackson get in there and play. I think he offers a skill set that is usable for this team. Logan Diggs has very much asserted himself as the lead back, but I think Caleb Jackson gives you something. And maybe his role doesn't really increase until we get to Vegas next year. But I'd like to see a little bit of that. And I wouldn't be totally opposed to seeing some of these freshman receivers. I'd like to see Shelton Sampson. I'd like to see Kyle Parker. I'd like to see Jalen Brown, Kamorian Pimpton, Mac Markway at tight end. I think some of those guys can get some reps in this game if the staff will allow them to do that. On the defensive side, I've talked about it. I like to see Whit Weeks play a good bit. I think they need to get more snaps for Deshaun Womack, who may offer something in the way of pass rush that LSU hasn't seen a ton of this year. And so when I say this is a dream match for LSU, one, it's in winning the game, and two, it's just in how you can handle the game. And I've gotten dissenting opinions from former players on how much these game reps mean. I've heard, like Brandon Taylor will tell you, yeah, you need to get out there and you need to play. I don't care if it's 58-3 against Army. Go play, get reps. And I've heard people say, yeah, you get good reps in practice, it's fine. I don't know what the real answer is or what it isn't. But I tend to lean on, like, getting some game reps is fairly important. And this is not going to be less toss, dive left, toss, dive right, plug it down the field, punch in a touchdown, kick a field goal here or there, run some clock, and the backup quarterback never sees the field. I just don't think that's what this is going to be. This is going to be Jaden Daniels and Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors and Logan Diggs right down the field. Right down the field. Right down the field. It's just going to be it's wind sprints. It's what they do against everybody that they've played, except Florida State. And that's what I think is going to happen. And then we'll see with Brian Kelly. We're still learning some things about Brian Kelly. I knew what Les was going to do in I didn't know what he was going to do in a press conference, but I knew basically what he was going to say about injuries. I knew how he was going to handle blowouts. I knew what practice would look like. I know all that stuff. And Brian Kelly, we're still a little early with the information of what we're going to get. And I'm curious how early we see some guys sub in and see some guys play. One, it's a nice rest for your guys that have now played 8 weeks in a row. And two, it's an opportunity to get some guys some snaps that may be relevant as we move forward. And I think some of those guys I mentioned, I don't think the freshman wide receivers are necessarily going to be that relevant, but absolutely Caleb Jackson could be. Absolutely Deshaun Womack could be. Absolutely Kamorian Pimpton or Mac Markway could be. I wouldn't bet on those two guys. I think Mason Taylor's pretty much got that one locked down, but it's something to look at while I'm potentially watching some SEC football in the press box, quite frankly. But this matchup is a perfect one for LSU to completely dictate the flow of the game. And it is one, when I saw it on the schedule, thought completely otherwise. I thought, okay, you got to blow up a week. Can't work on anything that you're not good at or work on anything for Alabama or work on anything. You have to learn how to defend the triple option for a week. That's a total disaster. And in fact, you look up and that's not what you have to do. You can take this week as a real week to prepare your football team for the games that will come. And LSU set themselves up to play some really important games moving forward. You don't have to scrap this week and just work on cut blocks and dealing with ball handling in the backfield. You can deal with real-life things that happen on the football field. We'll see how things go at 6:37 tomorrow night inside of Tiger Stadium. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.